You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello, everybody. Welcome here to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I am your host, Skyler Timmons, after calling a weekend of college baseball. And joining me after a weekend of watching Major League Baseball, it's Evan Lang.
And I'm unsure which product was better on the field.
Major League Baseball. It's always going to be Major League Baseball.
No, it's always like, oh, I remember back when the Cleveland Browns were mired in their 1-31 or whatever 2 seasons. And people are like, well, this college football team could beat the Cleveland Browns. It's like, no, they couldn't.
Yeah, and it's a big difference because, hey, you can labor through and ERAs are out the wazoo, and it's not the best at times.
Well, even the best college baseball teams probably wouldn't be able to beat a Major League Baseball team. You put the University of Tennessee out there against the Colorado Rockies, and the Rockies are probably going to win.
Yeah, even minor league teams. Like I've told this story before, when my brother playing at CSU Pueblo, they went and scrimmaged the Sky Sox back in the day, and the Sky Sox kicked their trash.
Gee, a AAA baseball team versus a college team?
A D2
Shocker.
College team?
D2 college school.
Went exactly as how you thought it would, but anyways,
it would be a really cool experience though. That had to be awesome for your brother.
He got Carlos Gonzalez to ground out. There you go.
Sometimes that's all you need. Hey, that is something you carry with you. I got Carlos Gonzalez out.
And you never believe it, he got him to wave through a curveball down and away.
Gee, I never would have expected
Unheard
that
of.
Fargo. Shocker, that one.
But enough about college baseball and all that good action. The regular season, Evan, the 2025 season has finally begun. We are now in the throes of a 162-game journey that is Colorado Rockies baseball, a roller coaster that is mostly going downhill majority of the time, which can be fun, you would think. But unfortunately, the Rockies are not a roller coaster in that sense. Started off the season in Tampa Bay, go 1-2 against the Rays. Mixed messages. We'll get into that, breaking down that series and just first impressions from the series. But we have to go back to the right before opening day of the finalization of the 26-man opening day roster. And Evan, we had touched on it a little bit last weekend in our last episode, but not really many surprises that we saw with the opening day roster. Figured everybody that we saw was on there. We figured, okay, they're probably going to be getting their spot on the roster. Jake Bird's squeaking through the pitchers. They went with the 4-man rotation. Bradley Blaylock makes the team out of the bullpen as a long man. So 7 first-timers on the opening day roster, Evan, which is pretty cool when you think about those kinds of things.
Yeah, almost all of them though in the bullpen for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Luis Peralta, Seth Halverson. My major complaint about the bullpen is I really didn't see a reason for Jimmy Herget to be on the opening day roster, but he was put on. He's a crafty kind of pitcher. He's the guy that Bud Black likes. So I really shouldn't have been surprised. But it's nice to see a lot of the younger guys on here. Young guys, you've got Bradley Blaylock, Angel Chivi, Seth Halverson, Luis Peralta, and Victor Vodnik making his second opening day roster. That's all great. The big surprise for me so far, now that we've got a couple days into it, and we'll obviously talk about this a little bit later, but is that so we went into the season assuming with the 26-man roster that Jacob Stallings would be the starting catcher. And with the first season of the books, the starting catcher has been Hunter Goodman. But he had a really nice spring. He's been working really hard on his catching, especially. And the Rockies outright said, his time as a multi-position kind of player is pretty much over. No more of this. He's playing first base or playing right field. He's a catcher. And I think that's really cool for him, because we've said both on this show and in our writing that he's the kind of guy who you want to find out if he's going to be a consistent big league player. And the way to do that is to give him consistent big league playing time. And it looks like the Rockies have, at least to start the season, committed to that. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, which is nice. And so far, not too shabby. But otherwise, the rest of the roster, pretty standard stuff. Tyler Estrada, Austin Gomber, Jeff Criswell get put on the injured list. Criswell on the 15-day, but at some point he'll get put on the 60-day when they need the roster spot. There's not really a crunch right now because they have open slots on the roster.
Yeah. Even right now, the Rockies have 39 of 40. So if they're not going to use all of those slots, moving Criswell to the 60-day really doesn't do anything yet. So they'll move him when they have to. Yeah. But the other big thing,
I was going to say, the first big thing from that 40-man roster, Evan, was Greg Jones ends up getting selected or claimed off waivers by the Chicago White Sox. And Greg Jones, who you may recall as you're listening to this episode, that Rockies traded for him halfway through spring training with the Tampa Bay Rays, sending their 2021 second-round pick, Joe Rock, over to Tampa Bay. And Rockies got Greg Jones. Evan, what were some of the reasonings why they got Greg Jones?
Because he is very fast, and he can play middle infield, and he can play center field, and he can play other outfield positions, and that was really it.
I think it was like Bill Schmidt saying he brings some tools that we don't really have on the team right now.
I would classify him as a baseball player.
Oh, interesting. But they claim him. He doesn't play much with the Rockies. Just 6 games, 5 plate appearances, or 5 at bats. He does have 1 hit. It was a pinch hit home run, which was really cool. But you look at his numbers down in AAA Albuquerque, a lot of fun. I think he was one of those fan favorites kind of things. Stole 40 some odd bases, like 46 bases.
Yeah.
Pretty solid across the board, a pretty solid season in AAA. Fortunately, Rockies didn't value it much, it would seem. I think they said, the skills are there, but the tools haven't really, or the tools are there, but the skill hasn't developed, type of thing. And so they just clear him off the roster spot. They didn't need to. There was really no real reason to drop Greg Jones, aside from just depth, or just didn't want him anymore. But they end up placing him on waivers, and he ends up with the White Sox, which hopefully good luck to him. And I hope he can really find a place there. I think Chicago probably is a good spot to land if you're Greg Jones looking for a spot. He's
starting the season in Chicago with AAA Charlotte. I have no doubt that we'll see him in a White Sox uniform at some point this year. Some other cool stuff. Coco Montes, former fan favorite down in AAA Albuquerque, was added to the 40-man roster for Tampa. He did not make the opening day roster, but they did decide to add him to the 40-man roster, which is really cool. He had a pretty good spring down there, and that's exciting.
And Brendan Rodgers makes the opening day roster with the Astros, so good for him. And it came down to the wire between him and somebody else, and they decided to go with him. So good on him.
And Garrett Hampson made the opening day roster for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
There you go. The guys making their rounds across the league. But
former Colorado Rocky first-round pick Tyler Nevin made his debut with the Saitama Seibu Lions against the Hokkaido Nippon Ham Fighters for their opening weekend down in Japan.
There you go. Where's Montero? Did he make his?
I believe so, yes. Though I wasn't able to see that one because they are Central League. Central League's a lot harder to watch here in the U.S. than the Pacific League is. The Pacific League is actually really cool. They have a YouTube channel where they occasionally have some guys doing a broadcast of the game with an English commentary, which is really, really cool. Granted, it's like at it's between midnight and 3 in the morning here in Colorado, but still worthwhile if you have the time and you're up that late.
Yeah, so there's all this roster stuff before the open day, but No, we see Greg Jones get off the roster. We're like, oh, maybe they're just clearing space. Maybe they'll do something, but we don't expect it because what else could this team do? And boy, howdy, Evan, did they surprise us and show us what they can come out and do, where they signed former first rounder, 1-1 overall pick form outfielder Mickey Moniak, who had been released in a kind of a scummy way by the Los Angeles Angels. They release him, and then the Rockies pick him up on a 1-year deal, like $1.2 million or so, and immediately, I guess, slide him in as the outfielder, another outfielder on the big league roster, which also, and essentially taking the place of Sam Hilliard, who was designated for assignment. Kind of a last-minute move, a la Jake Cave last season, of Moniak joining this roster. And Evan, we've had a couple days now to kind of stew on this because it happened right before opening day. But thoughts on the Mickey Moniak deal and why the Rockies bring him in?
So a lot of us were still really fuming when the Mickey Moniak move happened, just because of everything else the Rockies have done. What I will say that I've come around to at this point, after a few days after the first series, in a vacuum, this is a fine move. He's only 26 years old. There's still a chance to recoup value. He still has tools, despite the fact that he has struggled immensely in his 5-year big league career. He's only 26 years old. But I think one of the reasons why everybody got so mad about it, myself included, was because over the last week and a half, the Rockies did a bunch of really dumb stuff that made everybody mad.
Yeah.
And
that roster shuffle.
Yeah. If it hadn't been, okay, we traded Nolan Jones. Okay, we did this. Okay, we did that. And then bringing in Mickey Moniak, who has had, he's shown flashes. He put up 2.2 wins above replacement about half a season with the Angels in 2023. But throughout the rest of his career since debuting in 2020, he's been pretty bad. He's been worth negative wins above replacement in basically every season except for that one in 2023. But the reason why I think the Rockies bring him in is because he can hit home runs. He'll hit you double-digit home runs. He's got back-to-back seasons of doing so. And he's got some decent speed on him. But also that he's got that beloved outfield positional versatility. He can play every position. He can play center. He can play right. He can play left. And I think that's why they wanted him, and that's why they chose him over Sam Hilliard, both of whom had pretty bad spring trainings, all things considered. Moniak finished spring training with 2 home runs, but hitting just 192, 241, 365 over 58 plate appearances. Strikes out a decent clip throughout his entire career. Doesn't draw a ton of walks, but has a little bit of pop. We've said it before, he's kind of profile-wise a younger Sam Hilliard.
Mm-hmm.
He's quick, he's got pop, he's got versatility, but he's going to strike out a lot.
Mm-hmm. He's Sam Hilliard when Sam Hilliard broke through with the Rockies. Breaks out onto the scene, has that good spring, when he made his debut, and then figured, we're going to slot him in, but then the tools just didn't develop, and he struggled at the big league level, and it culminates into getting DFA'd this time. This is the second time by the Rockies. And so it's just kind of a weird, just a lateral move, it feels like, where you basically had the same player. I guess, maybe there's some sort of tool you like more with Mickey Moniak. Maybe they've convinced themselves he's a great player because he went 1-1 overall.
That's a very
Philadelphia.
Rockies thing.
Yeah, they looked at pedigree. That's partly why they traded for Greg Jones, because he was a first-round pick. The Rockies are on a journey to get as many first-round picks as they can.
But it's the same thing with Tyler Freeman as well, though, is it always comes out, this is a guy we really liked a couple of years ago.
Uh-huh.
And it's the same with Moniak, the same with Tyler Freeland. And Moniak's big issue is the strikeouts. He's got a career 32.3% strikeout rate and only a 4.5% walk rate in his career. That's not very good.
Yeah.
And admittedly, we said at the time, Sam Hilliard was not a good choice to have him on the opening day roster originally when they selected him.
Mm-hmm.
It was the wrong decision, and they said that it was because of his defensive skill set. And now they have jettisoned Sam Hilliard for basically a younger version of himself. Moniak not as big. Sam Hilliard's a pretty big guy, but still 6'2" and 200 pounds. So he's not small either. He's got the speed, he's got some pop, but he's just never really found that big league success. And at the same time, though, I can't help but feel bad for Sam. And I know that it's part of the business. It's all, that's baseball. That's how the business of being on a sports team works. But I do feel like they did him kind of dirty by naming him to the roster and telling him, you've got this spot. You made it despite a bad spring. And then at the 11th hour, immediately turning around and designated him for assignment.
Yeah. When they come out and kind of unofficially, Bud Black comes out and kind of unofficially announces it last Sunday like this is probably what the roster is going to look like. And we're bringing in Martini. We're not going to carry Zach Veen. Blaylock's going to make the thing. Like, we knew who it was mostly, and part of that. And like, that was all the writing, like Thomas Harding reporting, Rockies, despite his spring, they're going to carry him because he can play center field. They want that guy with experience in center field. So it's a lot more. They say one thing and then they just kind of pull the rug out and do something else. You were carrying Sam Hilliard because of his experience playing center field at Coors Field. That was the main reason, because you wanted his experience, and he played well in that bench role last season. But then because you want to go bargain bin shopping after a bad spring from this guy, at the last minute, you're going to dump him off to bring in Moniak, who, no fault of his own, I'll never blame these players for either signing or even sometimes being brought on. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
But it's the way the front office operates, where Moniak, so far, nope, okay, like he has a home run, and we'll dive into that.
Yeah.
But it's you do this, and then at the last hour, pull the rug out from Sam Hilliard and say, never mind, actually, we're not going to carry you because we got this bargain bin guy who's cheap, who's more expensive, mind you. So they're not getting a bargain deal here. They just dumping off Sam Hilliard because they want a younger version. We're trading in the old model for a new model.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's in a vacuum. This move is fine. You have a guy who's got at least a big league pedigree, a high draft pick pedigree. You're getting him for very, very cheap. He feels a need on the roster. Okay.
Yeah.
But because you have to combine that with the weird, insular, secretive Rockies front office, who you never know just what in the hell it is they're thinking, and all of the other moves they had made over the last week and a half, it just leaves you going, what are we doing? Because I don't understand.
Yeah. If we lived in a world where, okay, the Rockies bring on Moniak and Zach Veen's on the roster, great. If we just brought in Martini just as one guy, great. And we still have Nolan Jones. It's the fact, like, one of these guys, Moniak or Martini, one of them would have been fine. And I think we were kind of consigned to that. We're like, okay, yeah, whatever. We're fine with them on the roster, on the bench, filling a spot. But the fact then you go out and you get both of them, just two versions of the same player filling the same role. What are we doing here? It's just spinning the wheels. We're in the mud, Evan, and we're just spinning the tires, not going forward, and we're not moving backward. I think I had asked this over on X. See if I can pull this up. There weren't a ton of votes on it, but kind of asked that question of, after these outfield moves, do you think the outfield, and I'll ask you this question first, Evan, because you probably voted on that too. After all these moves, did the Rockies get better, worse, or stay the same after just this flurry of moves from the past week leading up to opening day?
To me, it's like you said, it's a lateral move. This outfield is not better or worse than it was last year. I would argue maybe it got a little bit worse because you are losing Nolan Jones's speed and range in left, as well as his absolute howitzer of an arm. But you know what? Nick Martini got an outfield assist the other day. So I would it's a lateral move. It's not an improvement, but it's also not exactly breaking new ground and trying to explore new things because nothing's really changed.
Yeah.
Nick Martini is Jake Cave.
Yeah.
He's Jake Cave with more power.
And Moniak is Sam Hilliard, just younger.
And a little bit less power.
Yeah. And looking at that poll over on X, and appreciate those 13 people that voted. I think I was one of them.
Hey, it's more than zero.
Hey. But even that super tiny small sample size of our audience, 38% said worse, 38% said stay the same. So a tie there. You optimistic people that said 23% said got better. You keep doing you. Be that positive influence in somebody's life. We'll be the pessimistic. But yeah, so
be the good you wish to see in the world.
Yeah. But it's like these are just moves we've seen time and time again. It's a lateral move. Same. The faces change, but the players stay the same.
Yeah, the team stays the same. Mm-hmm. And, just because I know that we're probably going to go to the break soon here, just to finish off my thoughts on the 26-man roster, is that some of these moves that they made were the right moves. Dedicating Michael Toglia to being your everyday starting first baseman, perfect. Exactly what we wanted. Exactly what we had been asking for. Great. Having Hunter Goodman, like I said earlier, be established as a one-position guy at catcher if you're not going to roll with Drew Romo, okay, perfect. I'm fine with that. And overall, Bretton Doyle in center field, not moving around, and having Jordan Beck be basically your everyday left fielder at this point, okay. But it's all the side stuff, all the shuffling, all the weirdness that makes it frustrating, where you lose Tyler Estrada, so they panic move and they send Nolan Jones for Tyler Freeman. And Tyler Freeman barely played this first weekend of Major League Baseball.
And came close to breaking his wrist.
Yeah. And meanwhile, it's been Kyle Farmer pretty much every day at second base.
Yeah, it's a weird team. But roster stuff, and we'll dive more into this, everything with the first series breakdown. But we're going to go ahead and take our first break here on this episode. Stick around. Plenty left to go here on Affected by Altitude here on the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network. Welcome back here. First series has been completed, Evan. And like we mentioned, they played in Tampa Bay at the Yankees spring training facility, George Steinbrenner Field, because that dang hurricane ruined the Trop. And so the Tampa Bay Rays will be spending their season at that spring training facility, and all kinds of money spent to improvements to make it big league ready, improve the clubhouse and everything. But Rockies went out to Tampa, first time playing outdoors in Tampa Bay or in Florida in general, because both those fields are closed, Evan. They play indoors because it's so blooming hot there in Florida.
Hot, humid,
sunny,
stormy, sticky.
But the Rockies go in and they end up losing 2 of 3. Honestly, in world they could have maybe won 2 of these games, 2 of 3.
Honestly, they could have won all 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a scenario where you could have seen how they could have won these games, but I think there's been a lot of pointed articles talking about how the Rockies just find creative ways to snatch defeat from the jaws
of victory.
But overall, Evan, what were some of your impressions from this first series, but from the Rockies in Tampa Bay?
First thing I want to address is definitely seems like a unique experience. It's a field they've never played in before. And it's a field that Major League Baseball has never been played in before. Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. It's an outdoor venue. It's the Yankees. What is it? It's high A. It's either low A or high A facility, the Tampa Terrapons. It's also their spring training home. And I'll start by saying it looks like a really, really nice venue. All things, it's smaller, definitely. It's a minor league ballpark, but the seating it looks really nice. Like, I think that would be a cool place to take in a ball game. It's a unique experience. But that unique experience also carries over to the players, because we saw over the weekend a lot of issues with weird shadows and sight lines, a lot of issues with the sun. of just this is a place where Major League Baseball hasn't really been played, and they weren't really prepared for some of it. So there was even a play in today's game. It should have been a routine pop-up at home plate, and everybody just lost it in the sun. And so it just dropped right down in front of home plate and ended up being a hit and putting a runner on. Where I think if there was more scouting on this venue for Major League Baseball play, you maybe could have avoided some of that. But overall, nice venue. Cool to be out there. Glad that there's a place that the Rays can play this year. But then you move on to the actual product on the field, and it was such a mixed bag of weirdness. The whole series was so weird.
It's
because
classic Rockies series.
So let's start with game one. All right. Kyle Freeland goes out and spins 6 gorgeous innings on 67 pitches. Looks fantastic. Strikes out 7. He looked amazing. Like, I know that Kyle Freeland gets a lot of hate, both for, sometimes he lets his more competitive and emotional nature get the best of him, but also because he's never really lived back up to his 2018 form where he finished 4th place in Cy Young voting. But Kyle Freeland looked incredible.
Especially compared to the 2024 opening day game.
Yeah. What a difference. He consistently hit velocity. He pounded the strike zone. He got a bunch of strikeouts. Looked fabulous. But then the Rockies offense was a complete no-show.
Mm-hmm. Which is a common thread throughout the weekend.
And a common thread for Kyle Freeland starts, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I feel his pain. That's how it always was in high school.
But, yeah, so 6 innings, only 2 hits, no earned runs, no walks, 7 strikeouts. And then Tyler Kinley comes in for the 7th inning, and it absolutely falls apart from there, where he could not locate his pitches. It was a very difficult outing, and the Rockies end up leaving the 7th inning with a tie ball game.
Good job, Angel Chivi there.
Yeah,
and we'll touch on the bullpen
came in, finished up the inning, great. And then Victor Vodnik comes in and pitches the 8th inning, looks great, gets a quick 1-2-3 inning. And then here's where we start to see the bullpen management masterclass that we've become pretty accustomed to in the Bud Black years, where the single inning guys, your high leverage guys, go out there for more than 1 inning. And Victor Vodnik goes out there, and on 1 pitch, the game is over. On a walk-off home run from a rookie hitting his first career home run.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty tough to swallow, because I was sitting there going, why is Victor back out there? Why are you doing this? He already pitched his 1 inning. It was a good inning. Put in Halverson, put in somebody else, because it was a tie game, and the offense had largely been a no-show. Outside of Ezekiel Tovar, Ryan McMahon, and Hunter Goodman, who all had 2 hits, at least, nobody else had a hit in the entire game, and they struck out 12 times.
So a pretty standard Rockies game, if you ask me. Not too, I think, yeah, we'll keep rolling on, and then we'll get into some other stuff. I just drew a blank.
But yeah, tough way to lose the first game of the season. There was a lot of criticism pointed towards Bud Black on his decision to pull Kyle Freeland early after just 67 pitches. Most people felt as though he could go out there for a 7th. Freeland himself said he probably could have gone out there for a 7th, but did admit that he was starting to feel winded. His legs were starting to get fatigued, and that's what Bud Black said is, Kyle was getting tired. I didn't want to risk it. It's the first game of the season. He's already gone 6. Okay. But when you've just got that little run support, I feel like you need to be smarter with what you're doing with your pitchers.
Yeah, and I was looking at Troy Rank. Like, in these instances, you still send Freeland out there and grit through it, do what you can, because hey, you might find a second wind. But if he looks gassed against the first pitcher or against the first hitter, okay, then you take him out. But it's we're trying to win ball games here. And who cares if it's the first game of the season? It's a game that counts. Every game counts.
Especially when in the next 2 games, both starting pitchers threw at least 10 more pitches than Freeland did. So you could have at least had Freeland go out there, seen at least one more batter, and then seen how he did from there.
Yeah. No, and we'll dive more into Bud Black stuff in our third segment a little bit. There was some comments from Bill Schmidt about that we'll touch on later. But let's talk about this weird starting pitching over the weekend in general, where honestly, through the 3 starts, not terrible results-wise. Ryan Feltner on Sunday gives up 2 runs, but ultimately wrangled it in and turned in a solid outing.
Yeah.
Kyle Freeland, what we just mentioned.
Overall, Felty, I was really pleased with. His first inning was rough, very rough. He gave up a big home run, faced a lot of traffic, wasn't locating very well. But then for the next 4 innings he pitched, he ends up finishing the day with 5 frames of work. He looked great. At one point, he had set down 10 or 11 consecutive batters for the Rays. He got his strikeout pitches working. He made very effective use of his changeup. And you can chalk up the first inning to the classic Rockies 1 bad inning starting pitching mantra, where our starting pitchers can look really great, but they'll have 1 bad inning that ends up being a bit of a difference maker. But overall, especially compared to, everything he was working on in spring training and everything like that, I would say that's a pretty good outing for Felty, especially considering he only ended up giving up 2 earned runs. That's a winnable ball game right there.
Yeah, and over the weekend, Rockies, take a picture now, folks. It's not going to take a good look. You won't see it for long. Rockies are currently 4th in Major League Baseball in starter ERA, 1.17. And those 2 runs from Feltner, all that the starters gave up this weekend. They had 12 strikeouts, 3 walks. He has strikeouts. We're going to be harping on those, but not terrible. But then that brings us to Antonio Senzatella with one of the all-time unique starts. It is one of the starts in baseball history where it's just so weird. Where
Antonio's, if you blank out certain parts of his line,
you're like,
you
dang.
look at Antonio Senzatella's pitching line from Saturday and go, he had a terrible day. But then you remove the hand from in front of the stat sheet and you see, 0 earned runs.
Yeah, you see, if you block out everything aside from innings pitched and hits, 4 1/3 innings, 9 hits. Well, surely he got banged up for several runs. What's this? 0s across the board, aside from the 2 walks he issued. And part of this is the Rockies had some nice defensive relays in the outfield, cut down some runners at the plate. There's one with Caballero for the or Caminero for the Tampa Bay Rays got really mad at Hunter Goodman because he the ball beat him to the plate. And then he
by a country mile. Like, it was not close.
Then he tries to jump and he gets tagged and then falls on his face and he's like,
yeah. Junior Caminero is like literally trying to make a lateral leap out of the way of the tag. And Goodman, because he has to apply the tag, moves forward and tags Caminero. And Caminero is really mad about it.
Like, what are you doing? You got beat and you're trying to leap over him? But, so this weird outing for Senzatella. Ends up throwing 78 pitches. And this is the one thing I always worry about with Senzatella, Evan, that we've seen for years now. He gives up a ton of contact. First pitch fastballs, players know it's coming, they're going to hit it. And so he gives up a lot of hits, a lot of contact, and by some grace of God, it didn't hurt him in this game. Yeah. But that's not sustainable. You can't rely on that every time. Your defense, that's great that they made their plays, but you can't rely on that every single time.
Yeah.
Especially when you get pitching at Coors.
What was the statistic? It's like one of the first times since 1922 that a pitcher gave up 9 hits and 2 walks and ended up not giving up an earned run or something like
I'll
that.
pull this up real quick. From Thomas Harding saying, and it's per Baseball Reference and stuff too. So Senzatel's 4 1/3 inning performance against the Rays marked the 5th time in Rockies history a pitcher gave up 9 hits but no runs. So we're pretty used to that. And then
how many of those is Antonio Senzatela?
joining the other 4 is Elis Chassin back in 2010, Aaron Cook in 2004, Brian Bohannon in 2000, and then Roger Bailey in 1997. So he's in some rare companies, some all-time names. And then also per Baseball Reference, it was the last time a pitcher allowed 9 hits and no runs with no strikeouts was Dave Dravecky in 1986. Only one other player did so in fewer than 5 innings, Bill Doak in 1922 in 3 innings.
And Dave Dravecky is famous for being on the mound and having his arm audibly snap during a game while throwing a pitch. It's actually it's a really interesting story because he had been undergoing treatment for cancer. He comes back. They told him, "Hey, you should not play this year. You should sit it out, buddy." And he's like, "No, I'm going to pitch. I need to compete." He comes in, he throws a pitch, and you can hear the snap. It's rough.
I do not
like
that.
But yeah, and I love Antonio Senzatela. This is a well-known fact about me. I'm a Senzatela fella, but he has never really evolved or taken that next step forward as a pitcher, especially as a starting pitcher. He throws that fastball almost 60% of the time, and it's almost always his first pitch. People know it's coming. People know what to expect from this guy, and he gives up a lot of contact, and yet he somehow usually manages to escape it without that much damage. And because and in this particular circumstance is because the Rockies played some truly sterling defense. Like some of the best defense that you'll see a team play at any point.
Yeah. And so it's not sustainable, but overall, the first 3 starters, not terrible. Hey, they pitched enough to where these games, they could have won all 3 games. They did their job. Defense helped them out, particularly with one of them. But they did their job, and Evan, this is where we need to break down into the offense quick, where a whole lot of nothing. It's just bland and stale and lifeless. And this was a concern because this is what we saw all through spring training from most of these starters in the lineup.
Lots of strikeouts, very little power, not a ton of extra base hits, except for some of your regular guys who they have the ability to do that. The first game, your MVP was Ryan McMahon, who had a perfect day of the plate, went 3 for 3 with a walk. Tovar and Hunter Goodman both went 2 for 4 and had a double. Nobody else had a hit, and they struck out 12 times. And the Rockies only scored 2 runs. And then the next day, the Rockies only scored 2 runs. They struck out a bunch, no power. And then the third game, pretty much the same until towards the very end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The Rockies struck out 31 times this weekend, which not the most in Major League Baseball because you have some teams who have already played 2 more, 3 more games than the Rockies have. But it's up there.
Yeah. And then the 3 walks are the fewest in baseball after the weekend.
The Rockies were also the last team in Major League Baseball to hit a home run.
Yeah, which is... Meanwhile, the Yankees with their cheater bats have 15 on the year. Good for them. But yeah, it's just more of the same, and we don't need to really spend a whole bunch of time rehashing things we've talked about before in the past. You could go pick up plenty of episodes from last season that we talked about stuff, and it's just time and time again. There's no pop. There's too many strikeouts. They don't walk enough, and yet what did they preach all off season, Evan, and into spring training?
Put the ball in play.
Put the ball in play, which they've done that too. But it doesn't help anything with when you do put the ball in play. What's happening? Well, nothing. They're not doing anything with it. I don't care if a guy puts the ball in play if it's just a little roller over to the first baseman. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice that Chris Bryant's hitting a ball out to the outfield, but an out's still an out if it's just a lazy fly ball to right field. Like
And
there's some guys putting the bat on the ball and making some good contact, and eventually that'll start coming through. But it's just more and more of the same. There's just nothing happening.
yeah. And we'll talk about it a little more on the other side of the break, but you have a bunch of guys who are again off to really slow starts and striking out a lot, and it's not unexpected at all.
Yeah. Just look at the Rockies offense, and you're like, well, just more of the same. And we're so used to it. Too many strikeouts, not enough power. There's not much more you can say about it.
But you just know they're going to hit.
Yeah. It comes down to the Rockies continually wanting to, they think the players are the problem. We just need to get a certain type of player and fill them in. But every single guy, a lot of the times, just ends up falling into the same tendencies, no matter who you plug in. You could take a Stephen Kwan from the Cleveland Guardians, plug him into the Rockies, which could happen because Bill Schmidt loves trading with the Guardians. You plug him into the lineup, high contact guy, we probably find him with a career high strikeout rate with the Rockies.
Yeah.
You can't blame the Coors effect either, Evan, because they haven't played at Coors Field yet.
Only one guy did not strike out this weekend.
It was me.
And he only had one at bat.
Nice.
It's Tyler Freeman.
There you go. Because he was taken out of the game because his wrist hurt. So it's just more of the same.
Yep.
So luckily it's only the first series with already troubling things, and we'll touch on a couple other things with some general housekeeping and other stuff when we come back here from our break here on Affected by Altitude. Don't go anywhere. Back here on Affected by Altitude, closing out some first series impressions here with myself, Skyler Timmons, and Evan Lang. And Evan, yeah, offense in general, more of the same. Not really, nothing we haven't seen before. It's that offense you love to hate. A whole lot of nothing. Starting pitching, not terrible. Now we get into what are some good things that you saw from this
Hunter Goodman's been great. Ended up going 4 for 12 with 2 doubles and a ribby. 4 strikeouts, which is not great, but he is getting the ball in play. Looks like he's seeing the ball well overall. And Goody's going to be one of those 3 true outcome guys, especially with the strikeouts and the hitting. He's either putting the ball deep into the yard, and he had 2 doubles this weekend, or he's going to strike out. And that's sort of his profile. It's not unexpected, but he had a really good weekend. I wish to say you kind of wish to say he didn't, but Nick Martini ended up having a decent weekend, mostly salvaged by the final game of the series where he went 3 for 4 on Sunday morning, but has a ribby, has drawn one of the 3 walks the Rockies have so far this season. So, that's not bad at all. We've seen people hit the ball with some authority, but overall, the real bright spot so far is Hunter Goodman and also Ezekiel Tovar as well, though he is, of course, starting out somewhat slowly. He's only struck out twice so far versus a lot of other guys on the team have 3+. But yeah, my big thing for positives is going to be Goody. In addition to some of the relief pitching that we've seen, Jake Bird, for whatever reason, is being asked to be a multi-innings eater again this year. He pitched 2 1/3 innings today, only gave up 1 hit, only gave up 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, no earned runs. He looked really good today.
Mm-hmm. Seth Halverson, he came into that situation to lock down basically the 2-inning save, so to speak. Came in and finished out exactly that scenario that you want, where you can call on a guy like that to get an out or so in the 8th, and then he comes in, closes down the 9th. Did his job. Vodnik, for the most part, despite the home run, was looking okay. There's just no reason he should have been out there for that 9th inning. But again, props, we already mentioned it, but Angel TVE, not too shabby in some instances, like with that bases loaded situation, gets out of it and keeps the game tied in the first game of the series. There's things to like there. Only one that really kind of struggled, Tyler Kinley, in his 2 outings already of spring. Off to a slow start.
Yeah. Kinley's tough because he had a great spring training. And I know you've got to take spring training stats with a grain of salt, but he was one of the few pitchers in spring training to walk away with a decent sized workload and a 0 ERA. And he comes in and both of these outings this weekend really struggled to locate his pitches, all of his pitches, not just his slider, not just his fastball. Nothing was hitting the zone. In his first appearance, he threw 14 pitches and only 6 were strikes.
Mm-hmm.
And those strikes were usually him giving up a hit or something. It was tough. And it's difficult because I like TK and we've seen him be a good reliever, but so far this season it's been bad and they've put him in twice and it's just made things worse.
Yeah, 2 outs recorded by Kinley over the weekend, 4 runs on 6 hits, 2 walks, 0 strikeouts. But in total, Jake Bird had 2 punch-outs, Angel TVE with 2 strikeouts, Halverson, Peralta, and Vodnik, each with a strikeout. Alexander and Herget, both scoreless outings. So early impression, you're seeing the good that is in that bullpen. It's just kind of been hard by Tyler Kinley being sandwiched in there. And then Luis Peralta's kind of been a little shaky, but he was shaky in spring training. But a little shaky here to start. But like I said, it's only the first 3 games of the season. And bullpens, we know how volatile they are. So we'll keep an eye on them and hopefully within a couple of weeks we can be having a conversation. We're like, man, Tyler Kinley's been lights out coming out of the bullpen over these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's, there's been some not good spots in the Rockies bullpen already this spring. But at the same time, you can see a little glimmer of, okay, I like this. This could be interesting. Yeah. But a lot of it's going to rely on good bullpen management, good workload management, and good coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are some of the good takeaways, I think, from this weekend. Any last thoughts here real quick?
I mean, I've got some negative takeaways for this weekend.
That's what we've been highlighting on it. When strikeouts, lack of walks. But I think this is one that we need to touch on real quickly. Bud Black, please stop using Chris Bryant as your cleanup hitter.
Yeah. Chris Bryant has hit cleanup in both of the first 2 games of the series and has looked terrible. He looked terrible in the spring. He's not looking good so far. And I understand that they want him in the lineup because they are paying him a lot of money. But when you're 0 for 8 with 3 strikeouts and you're just not doing anything at that spot, even when the guys around you are, when Ryan McMahon had 3 hits in the first game of the series, but he's immediately followed up with Chris Bryant, who goes 0 for, that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a refusal of using an actual power hitter in that lineup spot.
Goodyear Tolia should be your cleanup hitter. And we saw that today in Sunday's game where Hunter Goodman was the cleanup hitter and he had a pretty solid day. It's exactly, that is how it should be. And overall, the first 3 batters in the lineup, great. Doyle lead off, perfect. Tovar second, perfect. McMahon third, perfect. But then just this insistence of Chris Bryant as your cleanup guy and as your quote unquote veteran power bat when he's not hitting for power and he's striking out a lot, that doesn't work.
Yeah, because Brendan Rodgers was not a good cleanup hitter. Elias Diaz, not a good cleanup hitter. It's CJ Cron was the last truly great cleanup hitter for the Rockies. And even then, in 2023, he only had 9 home runs out of the 4 spot.
Yeah. It's this weird lineup building for Bud where he also tends to shuffle it around a lot, which is why it was extra weird because the first 2 games, they ran out identical lineups, which is already a little bit of a surprise. And then, of course, you have your Sunday mix-up game because it's your getaway day. That's not too uncommon, but you've got to think more strategically on who your actual cleanup hitter is. And I know that they want Chris Bryant to be the guy desperately because he's being paid $182 million and has spent most of his time with the Rockies on the injured list. But Chris Bryant should be hitting towards the bottom of the order at this point.
Yeah, no higher than 6th. Yeah, it's just a rough go of it.
Yeah.
And
I would rather have Nick Martini batting cleanup right now.
Yeah, there you go. You have to go one of two ways. You either go for your pure power guy or a guy who's just a really, really good hitter who can still get some extra base hits. And the Rockies don't have a whole lot of that, or many options, but we've listed off 2 of them. Now, in a perfect world, probably our batting cleanup. But it's just lineup construction and old school mentality where you can't have 2 left-handers hitting in a row.
Yeah.
What if it's to deter them from bringing in the lefty?
Especially when the role of the loogie, the left-handed specialist, does not exist anymore.
It's dead. So that's probably a good, perfect segue. It's kind of a whatever weekend. I'm not necessarily surprised by the results. You just kind of wish things were better.
It could be worse. We could be the Pittsburgh Pirates, who became one of the first teams to be walked off on in all 3 of their opening weekend games for the first time since the 1924 Pirates.
No, they're keeping the record in the family. But that kind of transitions us into the manager that we've talked about. Entering 2025, this is his 9th season as manager of the Rockies. So Bud Black has been here for darn near a decade. And we've talked about this time and time again, Evan, and it's conversation that we keep having to have where it's how long is Bud Black going to be manager of the Rockies? Now, for better or for worse, is he the manager that this team needs right now at this point in time in their franchise history?
And, I think we've said time and time again that answer is no. That, we've had 6 straight losing seasons under Bud. We're well on our way to a 7th here. 2 of those seasons were back-to-back 100-loss seasons for the first time in franchise history. And the continued frustrations that we have with him of his weird lineup construction, his bad game and bullpen management, his frustrating substitutions, his preferences towards veterans over letting the young guys play unless his hand is absolutely forced. And it's very frustrating because, we're already seeing the same bad habits again this year of leaving guys in too long, going back to guys who probably shouldn't have gone back to, putting in guys for a second or in some cases 3rd inning of work that are not supposed to be multi-inning guys. Like, we already had the fallout from in 2023 when Jake Bird was tremendously overworked out of the bullpen, and he struggled immensely in 2024. And now here in 2025, they've said that they want him to be a multi-inning kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's just trying to recapture the magic of 2017 and 2018. But it's just hard to really describe it fully in words. We're just spinning the wheels, and Bud Black, I think, is a big part of that, where he was here for those 2 seasons where he kind of walked into a situation where I think the Rockies could have made the playoffs if Walt Weiss was still there or somebody else. The team was primed for that, but you bring in Bud Black because you have these young pitching staff, the pitching whisperer. But Evan, it's over these past 6 losing seasons, I haven't seen much of the pitch whispering really come into play at all.
Yeah, where the Rockies have consistently had one of the worst pitching staffs in baseball over the last 6 seasons. And it's tough because, yes, the Rockies, especially over the last 2 seasons, dealt with a crazy amount of injuries in both their bullpen and in their rotation. You had Antonio Senzatela basically missed 2 years. You had Herman Marquez basically missed 2 years. That all stinks. And that's it. That is a big contributor where basically you're scrabbling to get these journeymans and stuff in there who can just make a start and help get you through the season. But even then, you still see all of these bad habits and weird decisions, the archaic coaching style, the archaic pitching style of you've got to throw down at the knees, you've got to do all of this. And, you know, for a guy who is this supposed pitching whisperer, and I'll be clear that I don't like really anybody on the Rockies pitching coaching staff right now. I don't think Darryl Scott's the right guy for the job. I don't think Bud Black is the right guy for the job.
Dustin Garneau?
He's not a
bullpen coach.
He's not a pitcher coach, but it's also his first season as the bullpen coach.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, he keeps doing the same things again and again and expecting this time it'll work. And we hear time and time again from the organization of the guys just need to play better. Like they're doing the same thing again and again, and it's not working, but the blame keeps falling on the players of, well, they're playing badly, they're just not doing good enough. And I hate that, because you've got to distribute that blame around. Like, yes, the players have not played well, but the coaches have not coached well. And I think that goes for all of Bud Black's coaching staff for the most part. I don't think Hensley Mullins is the right guy for the job. I don't think Darryl Scott's the right man for the job. I'm not quite sure what Mike Redmond does other than be Bud's friend.
He coaches the catching coach. That's basically what he is.
And so I sit here and I go, why do we keep doing this? You know, he does this. Victor Vodnik goes out for a second inning on Friday. We go, why is Victor back out there? He's a single inning guy. And there's so many pitchers that I can think of saying that over the years, some who have done better, some who have done worse. But we were saying this about Jake Bird previously. We've said it about Justin Lawrence. We've said it about Victor Vodnik. We said it about a bunch of different pitchers who, why are they back out there? What are you doing? Or why are you leaving them in there for so long?
Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff where we're just tired. It's just the same old thing. When you're a losing team, would Bud Black still have a job if he was on other teams going through this sort of thing right now?
No, and I don't think I can't think of any manager who would have as basically unlimited amount of leash as Bud Black has.
Yeah. And this is the way the Rockies go with a lot of, they've done it with a couple of their managers' history, but even then they've kind of had the short leash on Clint Hurdle after making the World Series. He's gone within 2 years, a year and a half. He's out as the manager. And, Jim Tracy, they loved him so much, gone to the playoffs, and all of a sudden they're like, well, you can be manager for as long as you want, Jim. Which, hey, Jim Tracy wasn't a bad manager, but it got to a point where he didn't need to be the manager anymore. The team was in a transition. So then they bring in Walt Weiss. Walt Weiss does his thing, and then he moves on. And it's this pattern where now the Rockies don't want to fire anybody, Evan, at least the head manager. And it kind of shows. And there's this article from Bob Nightingale, good old Nightingale. Say what you will about Nightingale, but talking about Bruce Bochy and Brian Snicker, and now this could potentially be their last seasons managing for their respective clubs, perhaps even in their careers. And Bud Black's chiming in on this, talking about Brian Snicker. He's like, I think the Braves have recognized for years good baseball men and just kept them. I think the loyalty works both ways, from the organization to the baseball men and back to the organization, and Snicker is the epitome of that. Bobby Cox was revered by so many Braves people as well as outside the organization. So is Brian. Talking about Bruce Bochy, praising these guys. In my career, no doubt, in-game, the best strategist I've ever been against. The bullpen usage, when to take a starter out, the in-game stuff, the hit and run, the pitch outs. He's the best I've ever seen around. Just a great feel for the game. Why didn't you follow in his footsteps and learn from his example? But then here's the one, Evan, that we're hearing again. While Rockies manager Bud Black has yet to decide whether he wants to continue managing after the season, he already has an open invitation to return. I know we're trying to build something that's not easy at times, Rockies general manager Bill Schmidt says. I know the frustration, but I know he wants to see it through. Our intent is for Buddy to be here. He knows when it'll be time, but we want Buddy to be here. Buddy knows that. He's earned the right. Evan, some thoughts on these comments from general manager Bill Schmidt?
I hate it. I hate it so much because there's a lot to unpack in a very short amount, a very small amount of words. I know the frustration, he wants to see it through. He knows when it'll be time. But it's like, for almost every other big league organization, almost every other professional sports organization outside of like your dynasty teams, there is no he knows when it's time. It's you know when it's time. It's time to move on. And the Rockies had an out. Bud Black's contract was over, expired, done. And they chose to bring him back on a 1-year deal. And now they're choosing to give him this continued comeback and manage the team pass, saying that he has earned it. And there are guys in the history of sports that have earned these sort of unlimited free passes. You got Pops with the San Antonio Spurs. You've got your guys like Bochy and Snitker and these managers who have consistently won and done so much for the game and for the Dave Roberts consistently won and done so much for the organizations that they've been a part of. You know, your Harbaughs in the NFL, and for the Avalanche, your Bednars. You know, for the Avs, Coach Bednar is sort of a standout for how long he has lasted with the Avs through both the ups and the downs, because that's one of the more cutthroat coaching gigs. Is if you don't get immediate results, you can be out.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Bedsy has earned that from where he turned this organization around to. And yes, Bud Black took the Rockies to the playoffs in 2017 and 2018. 2018. Too many numbers on it. 2020, 18, 19, 20. But where has, in the last 6, now this is the 7th season, where has he earned it? Because 6 straight losing seasons is not earning it to me. And 6 straight losing seasons where the team is consistently getting worse, not better, in basically every way, shape, and form. How is that earning it? How is that earning it?
Mm-hmm.
How has he earned it? And I'm not trying to like dunk on Bud Black as a person. I'm not. You know, he's got his foibles, he's got his faults. He can be a little bit taciturn when he's grumpy. He'll be very snippy with the press sometimes. But overall, I don't think he's a bad guy. And I don't even necessarily think that he would be a terrible manager in a different situation than what the Rockies are. Because you know what? Yeah, he was a solid manager in 2017 and 2018, where he was inheriting a lineup built to compete. And that is not what the Rockies are right now. The Rockies are a team getting younger, that needs to get younger, that needs to be rebuilding and trying to find a new identity. And Bud Black is not the man for the job. He has shown that he's not the man for the job again and again and again. And the organization keeps going, oh, well, he's got the right. He's got this unlimited return pass. And it's the same thing we hear from all of the other people in this organization. I think, we're trying. We hope. But there's been no actual results. Bud Black is the winningest manager in Colorado Rockies history. He is also the losingest manager in Colorado Rockies history.
He's also the longest tenured manager in Rockies history.
And that says a lot, I think, about everything. Is that when the Rockies, you even had some of the players who remained anonymous say that they thought they needed a new voice and a new face in the clubhouse at the end of last season. And instead, even though they had a perfect out, they chose to bring back Bud. Yeah. And I think at this point, you can't rely on, he'll know when it's time. And I know that this team is fiercely loyal. Dick Monfort and even Bill Schmidt have this fierce loyalty to the guys they view as their guys. And Bud Black is very obviously in that situation where Dick and Bill, they like Bud. Dick Monfort especially. They don't want to fire him. it's up to him when he wants to be done. But if you want to turn this organization around, then you've got to make the tough decisions of no, I think this time we need to be the ones to tell him he's done. Because they have fired managers in the past. I remember back when they fired Buddy Bell mid-season in the early 2000s. And, like you said, they fired Clint Hurdle just like a year and a half removed from being in the World Series. But they won't do that with Bud Black, who the returns have been infinitely worse on every season compared to the worst seasons of Bud Black and Jim Tracy and even Walt Weiss.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very clearly not working. And it doesn't, like, yeah, firing a coach mid-season or after the season stinks. It's always going to stink. It's not a fun process to fire somebody. Having been in the situation where I've had to fire someone, it sucks. But sometimes that decision that you are making to fire someone, yeah, it sucks for them, and yeah, it sucks for you. But for the rest of the team, it is the right decision and is going to make things better or open up an opportunity to make things better. And until the Rockies realize that, I feel like they're just going to keep shuffling their feet, spinning their tires in the mud, rearranging your deck chairs on the Titanic.
Mm-hmm. It's that false sense of that you owe anything to a lot of these guys. You don't owe anything to Bud Black. No, he got you to the playoffs this 2 years. That doesn't buy him an infinite number of years to manage however long he wants until he decides to leave or whatever. No, he's not in charge of the organization. His job is to manage the team that you put on the field for him to help you navigate a season and help teach your young guys. It's not him that should be making the decision. His power is limited to, I'm the manager of what's given to me, what's on the field. But he's essentially, like an NFL head coach where it feels like he's in charge of the roster, of moves that are made, and though they're in constant communication with him, which is important. The manager needs to know what's going on. He can put in the wish list and stuff, but it feels like he has more say in this organization than perhaps a lot of other managers do.
Yeah.
Because I think back to, like, who was hired at the same time as him? Torey Lovullo with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Two entirely different situations and where they are now. Where Lovullo is, if there's a manager that's earned where he's at right now, it's Torey Lovullo. What he's done with the Diamondbacks, how he's helped turn things around there and built them to where they help build them where they are now. Absolutely, he deserves, but there's still contract stipulations on his role. It's not a handshake agreement like, well, you do this until you want to leave. There's none of that. There's accountability. Bruce Bochy with the Rangers signed a 3-year deal. This could be the last year of his deal, and they'll move on. There's no, well, Bochy, you can come back as often as you want year after year. No, they can probably tell him that, like, hey, if you want to, then let's talk. But if not, then let's move on. But it feels like Bud Black just kind of mails in his application and says, hey, I just want to renew my subscription to the Rockies manager position. Oh, well, you're signed up for another year.
Yeah. And it's weird because, the whole we owe it to him and he's earned it mentality is, then I guess you didn't owe it to, Nolan Jones, who was, 4th place in Rookie of the Year voting, and you cut bait on him basically as soon as you could this offseason.
Yeah.
Or did you not owe it to Troy Tulowitzki and Nolan Arenado or any of those other departures from the team that were particularly ugly? Did you not owe it to Clint Hurdle, who brought this team to the World Series for the first time in franchise history? No, you fired him.
Mm-hmm. And so it's just these false senses of loyalty and just kind of misplaced. Like, yeah, there's a world where Bud Black could have continued to be the right manager, but by the Rockies front office decisions with the roster, it became clear they were doing one thing, he wanted to do another thing. And it's that miscommunication, clashing of ideologies, where now it's just kind of trying to do both, and it's not working on either end.
Yeah.
So it's just frustrating that way. It's the lack of accountability, Evan, because if they're like, okay, bud, 1-year contract, we'll see where we're at after the season. No, and like you said, it's Bill Schmidt and Dick Monfort. They have the power to say, bud, we appreciate everything you've done, but we're going to go in a different direction now.
Yeah, and I just think back to in the offseason of 2023, when the Rockies hit 100 losses, you brought up Don Baylor talking about the Rockies in 1993, their expansion season. A season where people expected the Rockies to lose 100 games as an expansion team, and they didn't. And Don Baylor said, it's not my competitive spirit to simply accept that. But we never really hear that kind of thing from Bud, the fire in the belly to push against these things. Like we hear, yes, we want to win, and of course we want to win, and we think we can win, and we hope we can win, and maybe we can win.
Yeah, we'll see.
We're trying to win, but we don't then see the actions and the accountability.
Yeah, and that's been an issue for the Rockies for a while. And so it's at some point you have to just hope that 2025 maybe would be the final year that he has enough of the losing. Because I'm sure continue losing and facing that backlash. Yeah, he would want to see it through. But in some of those instances, Evan, like I'm sure Gandalf wanted to see it through to the end with Frodo to destroy the ring. But was Gandalf there the entire journey? No, he fell down a pit fighting a fire monster. No, there were other things he had to do. The Fellowship had to go a different way, Evan. Aragorn would have gone with Frodo to the end, but he realized it wasn't his job. He had to let Frodo go.
So what you're saying is this organization needs a Samwise.
Yes. Or at least an
Samwise the
Aragorn.
Brave. I'd take a Gimli at this point.
Mm-hmm. Merry and Pippin poked a guy in the shin. Ooh.
They played their roles.
They did. They had their roles, and they didn't overstep their bounds.
This analogy's gotten really tortured.
Mm-hmm. When do the Eagles come to save us?
That's the wrong sport.
Oh no. Where's Jason Kelsey when you need him? Hosting a late night show that fails miserably.
Yeah. Podcasting somewhere, I assume.
But this episode's ran a little long, as always. But hey, we got a good 10-minute Evan rant, so that was pretty good.
I usually try not to rant, but I've been a little heated the last couple of weeks. And honestly, sometimes you get me in front of a mic and you push my buttons, and I will treat you to a rant. And that is where I've been at.
What if I told you I stopped recording 15 minutes ago?
I've had these kind of rants off mic at you, so you know as well as I do that doesn't matter.
But we're going to get through this season together, though, and we'll have many conversations, good, bad, and the ugly. But hey, we'll be here every week. New episodes every Monday. At least we'll try to every Monday. Sometimes things happen, but usually we'll be here every Monday. Evan, where can the folks find you?
You can find me over on Blue Sky at EvanLang27. I would love to hear from you. You can also catch me writing the Monday Rock Piles over on Purple Row, as well as the weekly Pebble Reports that go up on Tuesday or Wednesday. The minor league season is officially underway with the Albuquerque Isotopes playing right now. And starting next week, all the other affiliates are going to be playing games. So look forward to that. I love keeping up with the minor league stuff for all y'all. Really, really excited. You can also find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice, be that Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. You can also catch the video version on our YouTube channel. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on your favorite social media platforms of choice, including our YouTube channel at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop.
You can find me over on Twitter at Skyler Timmons or over on Blue Sky stimmons13.psky.social and writing Wednesday Rock Piles for Purple Row and writing stuff over at fansfirstsports.com. Fans First Sports Network, FFSN, and all kinds of good stuff. And be on the lookout as we go throughout this season. We'll kick around other ideas. Hopefully we'll get interviews throughout the season. May unveil a podcast or two. Who knows? Every Rocky Hour is kind of on a hiatus till maybe the summer because my co-host is extremely busy.
Yeah, this time of spring is not exactly a fun time of year for teachers.
Yeah. So
let's give a shout out really quick. Speaking of Rockies and minor league stuff, to our friend of the show, Zach Agnos, earning his first AAA save today for the Albuquerque Isotopes. Worked a flawless 9th inning with 2 strikeouts to assist the Isotopes to their first win of the season.
There we go. We need to get enough guys where we can compile a friends of the show roster.
I think we've got some friends of the show.
Yeah, we just don't have enough to fill out a full roster.
Yeah, we'll get there though.
But stick around. You can follow us over on all those social media sites, like you mentioned, and be able to follow us. We have plenty of fun over there on the internets as well. But until next time, I'm Skyler. That's Evan. This has been Affected by Altitude. Farewell. This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.